everyone, Lisa here from Down to Earth Gardening, and we're getting towards the end of summer. It's hydrangea season, and so I want to talk a lot about hydrangeas and the different colors of them and how we can control them or why they do what they do. So I'm in front of my daughter Hannah's house here, and we have some bloom-struck hydrangeas framing the front door. So there's two on each side of the front door. Right now I'm on my left side, and I think this is such a great spot to talk about pH. So at the end of the row, or the left corner of the house here, we have some bloom-struck hydrangeas that are much more purple than they are at the right end of the house. So at the right end of the house, I'm going to show you later, they are like a rosy pink. So when you're selecting your hydrangeas, you really need to think about, what color do you want? You want to pick a hardy blue, purple, or pink, but you do have some say in what you're going to end up with. So your options for the bloom-struck hydrangeas are a range of some really deep purples, which I have at my house, to some rosy pinks, to even some pale pinks. And I'm just going to talk about why they end up the color they are and how you can have a little bit of control or say in what you get here. So because we're talking about hydrangea blooms and their color, we do have to get into the science of it. And I'm going to try to break it down a little bit because it can get super scientific, and I'm a gardener, so I want to know the gardening reasons behind what happens in my garden. So we do have to talk about soil pH, and it is great if you've taken soil tests and you know the baseline of your soil. That's fantastic. But even if you don't, there's still some things that I just want to share with you that can help you adjust the color of your hydrangeas. So pH scale goes from 0 to 14. So neutral is halfway there, that's 7. And when you get below neutral, so down from 7 to 0, we're talking about acidity. So soil that's acidic. And when we're talking about 7 and above, so 7 to 14, that means your soil is more alkaline. So to get blue or our deep purple, almost blue hydrangea blooms, we want it leaning a little more acidic. So we want to stay right around neutral. We don't want to get too far away from there. I'm going to talk about why. And if you want your hydrangeas to be pinks in the shades of rose, mauves, and pale pinks, then you want your soil to lean a little more towards alkaline. So I know it sounds complicated, but it really isn't, because we really try as gardeners to keep our soil around a pH of about 6.5. So we kind of have to stay in that range. And the reason is that soil pH and fertility go hand in hand. So in order for your soil to take up the nutrients it needs to produce the great gardens that we have, it needs to be around 6.5, 6.5. So that's the sweet spot. So we are just going to play with that a little bit. We're going to talk about how you can play with that to change the color of your flowers. So in this garden here, what I find so interesting is that we treat all of these 4 hydrangeas the exact same. So we will amend the soil in the spring, and they're still slightly different color. So I just find that so interesting, because that means the starting point of the soil, even though this isn't in a very big space, is slightly different. So that happens a lot in gardens. And so a lot of times when we're doing soil testing, even in a small area, I'll say to people, take at least 2 soil tests, because your soil can be so different on one side of even a small garden as it is on the other side of the garden. So it's just so interesting, and I think once you start researching it, you'll see that there's a lot of different things in play when it comes to soil pH, and a lot of it has to do with geographic region, so where you live, and then there's other things that come into play like rainfall, watering, your soil texture, and such. So now I'm on the other side of the house with the bloom-struck hydrangeas that are a little more pink. So rosy pink. Um, Down here is another one. And so the soil down this end of the house must be a little more alkaline. So to keep going with our scientific reasons why our hydrangeas are pink versus blue or purple, really the pH indirectly affects the color of the flowers. And that's because the real reason is the availability of aluminum. So it's the aluminum that is changing the color of the flowers. So remember when I talked about your soil your soil pH has a sweet spot for where it can most successfully take up nutrients that it needs. And so you can play around a little bit with your soil pH to affect the aluminum that is taken up or absorbed by your hydrangeas. So it is all very interesting. So the bottom line is, if you want your hydrangeas to be pink, if that's your goal, or if that's what you're seeing, then your soil is going to be a little more alkaline. And if you want your hydrangeas to be blue, deep blue, purple, it's going to be a little more acidic. So that's the bottom line. And so how you can change that is in the spring, if you want your blues or your purples, you're going to add aluminum sulfate around your shrubs and you're going to water it in. And adversely, if you're looking for some pink blooms, different shades of pink, you're going to add garden lime. So now in the gardens that we take care of in our own gardens, we do this every spring with our hydrangeas. We adjust the pH slightly, and that is because soil is kind of magical and it has a tendency to revert back to its natural state. So that's why you hear gardeners all over talking about plant the right plant in the right spot. So you're not always fighting things. But with the hydrangeas, that is how you adjust your blooms. So it's all very interesting, and I also highly recommend testing your soil. It's great for so many more reasons, and in the future you're probably going to hear me talking a lot more about that. But in the meantime, I hope that I've given you some tips at home on how to adjust your hydrangea blooms so you can get the color that you truly want. So thank you all so much for joining me. I love doing these videos for you, and I really hope that this has helped you. If you like this video, go ahead and tap like and subscribe to our channel because we have many more gardening videos coming your way.